Hello, welcome to the Go Raleigh Transit Authority meeting for today, April 8th. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 3:37. And starting the meeting, we're going to quickly just read through the executive orders from Governor Cooper. The governor has issued executive orders requiring individuals to remain in their homes except for certain activities, closing many businesses to the public and prohibiting any gatherings which do not apply with its terms. Because of the risk to the public that would arise from continued in-person meetings pursuant to NCGS 166A-19.24, the city is converting Raleigh Transit Authority meetings to a remote electronic format for the duration of the state of emergency. All votes will be counted by roll, and attendance will be counted by roll. So I'll go through attendance. If you are here, please say aye. I mean, if you're not, then you can't say anything, I guess. Right. Nathan Spencer.
Aye.
Karen Ridge is not here. Michael Stevenson. I thought I saw Michael on the. Hello?
Sorry, aye.
Oh, no problem. Sarah Prado.
Aye.
Jen Truman.
Aye.
Morris Cook.
Aye.
Brian Burnett. All right, Joshua Gill.
Aye.
LaPonda Edmondson.
Aye.
And I, Tallulah Omokaye, Chair. And do we have our City Council liaison, Corey, here today? Councilman Branch? All right. So let's go ahead and jump right into our agenda. Are there any, we have to start with our approval of our minutes. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes, or are there any questions regarding them?
I'll make a motion. This is Nathan Spencer to approve minutes.
Joshua Gill seconds.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. We'll go through the attendance roster. Please say aye if you agree and nay if you do not. Nathan Spencer.
Aye.
Michael Stevenson.
Aye.
Sarah Prado.
Aye.
Jen Truman.
Aye.
Morris Cook.
No.
Joshua Gill.
Aye.
We pause. Can we even go further onto the question, or just keep going? LaPonda Edmondson.
Aye.
Morris, is there a question to the minutes?
The second page stated that you wanted it, you stated that it would go to the Police and Finance Committee. Should be policy.
That is correct. Can we update that for the record, that on the second page, it is a typo that says I was sending this to the Police and Finance Committee instead of the Policy and Finance Committee?
Yes, we will document and make that change.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Morris. Thanks for catching that.
Mhm.
Are there any additions to the agenda as it is? All right, and it looks like we have no action items today. Do we have any public? Has anybody signed up?
I'm sorry. We do have an action item in route committee. We can get to that when we get there.
Okay. Are there any action items that we want to say for the record? Any other committees, just as we see the agenda as is on the screen?
Well, certainly, we do have action item under finance and policy as well.
All right, thank you. And do we have any public comments? Has anybody submitted to speak at 4?
It is my understanding that we do not have any public speakers that have signed up to speak today, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. And just for the record, since we're on that point of it, can you, since this is broadcast, just tell people what they would need to do if they wanted to issue a public comment or speak at the meeting?
Yes, just to make sure that I don't get this sideways, I'm going to ask Andrea to provide a quick comment on how people can get signed up there.
So you can sign up on the City of Raleigh RTA webpage and register, or you can send any of your comments that we can read on your behalf to GoRaleigh@raleighNC.gov. Either way, your comments will be heard, and we like them to be submitted by noon on the day of the board meeting.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, so let's just jump right into our committee reports with our route committee. I'm sorry.
Can I add one thing? This is David Eatman.
Yes.
So I was just going to remind everybody, if they could, to introduce themselves if they're speaking. So just say your name, and that way, for the record, we'll know who's actually making statements. I'm happy to say that we have a regular quorum today, and without using any of our alternates or new members. But what that also means is, just so if we go into formal votes in the route committee and also the finance and policy committee, then the 5 regular members will vote. And that does not preclude our alternates today, or our newest members, from providing comment or providing their thoughts on the vote. But we will only be counting the original 5, as that's the way the charter set up. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that up front. Again, we're not that does not ever limit a new member's opportunity to vote at committee, nor does it limit their opportunity to provide comment and to provide their opinion on the vote. But it would we would be relying on the core 5 members today for the action items. I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that, since that is kind of an interesting setup that we have as part of the transit authority. But that's just the way all new members come on board as an alternate to start with. So thank you, Madam Chair, but I just wanted to make sure that was clear so we didn't have any confusion today. Thank you. You may be on mute if you're, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Thank you for pointing that out for us. So let's jump into the route committee with Nathan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Nathan Spencer, Chair of the Route Committee. We met on Tuesday, and we went through a number of different items. The first is that we have looked at the R-line benchmarks. As some of you may remember, we paused the R-line during low ridership. All fares are free, so while service for the R-line was also free, ridership was also very, very low, so we stopped running it. There are benchmarks to restart it. The benchmarks require us to hit 2 benchmarks consecutively for 2 months. And they don't have to be the same benchmarks, but we have to be able to do 2 months worth. And they're based on pedestrian counts, food and beverage sales, and parking garage occupancy. So far, we are climbing, but we're not quite there yet. So it does look like there is light at the end of this tunnel. We discussed the Glenwood corridor package. This was something that is being paid for by the Wake Transit Plan, was planned out some years in the past, was slated to come in earlier in 2020, but due to the concerns over the financial uncertainty with the pandemic, it was paused and put on the reserve list. It is now being put forward. The Glenwood package includes more regular service, every 30-minute service to Crabtree Boulevard and up to Pleasant Valley from downtown Raleigh, as well as connecting on to Briar Creek all day rather than just 4 times a day. It'll provide a significant amount of value for both the businesses along that route that need their workers to get there, but also people commuting and getting around there. So this is a good addition, and I'm glad that Wake Transit found the money to get that up and running. The next thing that we discussed and was a fairly controversial topic was the enhanced transfer point. We had a discussion regarding an enhanced transfer point that was located, that's supposed to be located and installed on Rock Quarry Road at the corner of MLK Boulevard. It is about according to Google Maps, it's about a 3-minute walk from the other bus stop, where basically it's on Rock Quarry, and I don't have a picture at this point. I don't know if staff could put that forward, but it's on Rock Quarry, requires people to maybe get off the bus. If they're getting on the bus that picks up on Rock Quarry, they're fine. But if they're transferring to the other one, because it's a larger enhanced transfer point, they would have to wait for their next bus to come and then proceed to walk around the corner. This came because a negotiation with Raleigh Parks that didn't want a shelter. There it is. A shelter in front of the park as people are going by. The concern, and if you look at your screen right now, in the bottom right side, just past where that second walkway would go is where that other bus stop is, where you would pick up the other bus. So it's a significant walk, especially if you have a child and or groceries or other things. So we were not excited by the plans that seem to have come to fruition with this. In a lot of cases, we're finding that enhanced, or I've heard that, enhanced transfer points usually mean that you get off at one stop and then you wait for the next bus at that same stop. In this case, it's more like a larger bus stop for a lot of waiting. I don't know if anyone else who was in that meeting wants to comment, or whether if you weren't in that meeting, you have comments. I'm more than happy to open the floor to hear from other people's thoughts on that.
Nathan, this is Michael Stevenson. What was the specific objection to having a bus shelter there?
The specific objection is that it's being called an enhanced transfer point, and it's being described as a place where one could get off and then transfer to another bus, but it's fair distance away from the other bus and bus stop, and it's also
what was the objection to the original location next to the park?
Oh, I apologize. The objection came from Raleigh Parks. They didn't want a shelter in front of the MLK Memorial Park.
So just a visual, they thought it would visually be objectionable.
Yeah, and it also, I did clarify with staff during the meeting that because of the location, if we were to set up any signal priority or queue jump technology, it would not apply there. because the bus is stopping significantly further back in traffic than if they were able to then get a green light and go ahead of traffic. Okay, so I don't know if there's any other comments. Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a comment. I didn't know if Michael was done yet. My comment to the bus stop, I understand that they had to move it back. If I understood correctly, they said that they were going to put some technology, some autometrics on the bus stop so that you can see when buses are coming for the different buses that are in that area. There are bus stops in different spaces. This is more supposedly, and from my estimation, is more of a resting stop. So if you missed your bus and you decided to wait for it at that shelter while you wait for the other bus to come, because the other bus stops that are around don't have shelters and they don't have benches. So that would be like a depot for people to sit and rest until their bus came and then get to their bus stop. If there's signage on the bus, the electronic signage that they said that would be there showing when buses are coming, that would be easier for people to do. And probably better for some people who might be sitting out there, and it gives them some protection from the, weather if it's raining or something, because everything around there is just a sign. There's no benches, there's no shelters. That would be the only one. So my suggestion is, whether we do this or not, that we add some sort of comfort at the other stops as well, like a coverage or a shelter or a bench at least for people to sit on, because especially this area that's across the street from the MLK Memorial, when it rains, it gets really muddy and dirty right there, and there's no seat and there's no cover. So the upside of having that shelter there is that people will have a place to sit. The downside of it is it cannot be a bus stop. It can't be moved further to cut off or block view from the MLK Memorial. And it is a walk across the street or wherever to the other bus stops. So I'm suggesting an and both situation.
Madam Chair, you also bring up an interesting point. I am concerned about people who decide that they're going to run out to catch the bus across the way. And because it's a haul to walk up to the crosswalk, wait, and cross, they may try to run across the street, which has been a serious problem we know along Capitol Boulevard and has led to numerous deaths. And Rock Quarry Road right around there is quite quick. People are moving at a minimum of 45 miles an hour there.
Yeah, that's why I suggest that if we don't do it, or if we do it, we still put shelter at the other stations. So then people are more apt to stay at their station if their bus is just a few minutes away, and cuts down them running across the street. But we have to put something out there to give coverage to the riders, because right now there's nothing.
Absolutely agree. So if there's no other comment, please go ahead.
This is Jen Truman. I've been thinking about this since I was listening, and I know I commented in committee, but I've been thinking that these kind of informal transfers that aren't like on the official transfer route maps right now are really like critical to the way the bus actually functions for a lot of people that ride. Like, I know for me personally, I often don't go to Moore Square, but transfer buses at places like this where you walk around the corner. And I feel like in that sense, I really do want a shelter here, because that's a critical place where people are waiting for the bus. But at the same point, I want to make sure that we're making the point that it's important to think about that user experience of waiting for one bus and transferring to another. In as far as like how the enhanced signage actually gets integrated, how a crosswalk that needs to be added gets integrated. Like, I feel like we need to make sure that when this is presented and when it's installed, that it really has all of those details in line, and that at the point where we're approving it, at this point, and I'm new to the committee, so I don't know all the processes. So I will say maybe that's all going to happen. But I think it's really critical that we get those details right as we as a board approve this.
I appreciate that, and I agree with you. And, if we can add more enhancement to all 4 of those stops, it might work even better. That way, people don't feel like they need to move, but have spaces around. And I didn't know about the stop across the street getting muddy, but that's a serious safety issue. So no matter what happens, we definitely need to take a look at that. If there are no other comments on that, we'll move to the next item, route committee discussed, which is the item that we have a action item for, which is the Wake BRT Southern Corridor LPA. If Het wants to come on, he can do a quick presentation to update the board on what the details are for that he did for route, and we can probably take a vote on that.
Yes, this is David Eatmo, Transportation. We do have that presentation available, and I believe Mr. Het Patel is queued up and ready to run through that. If I could, Madam Chair, as well, I misspoke earlier. So when you do vote, Ms. Jen Truman is a regular member. There's so much change that I can't even keep up. So my apologies there. That just wanted to make that statement as far as the voting goes. We do have a new member that has not come onto the board yet at all, and Ms. LaPonda Edmondson is our other alternate at this time. So my apologies for the confusion earlier, but I wanted to get that straight. And now, Mr. Patel, I'll turn it over to you.
Wait, I just ask a question so we have clarity. Who are the 5 that can vote?
I believe that's 6, Mr. Spencer, Mr. Stevenson, Mr. Gill, Madam Chair, and Ms. Sarah Prado, as well as Ms. Jen Truman.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Het Patel. I'm a senior planner within the transit division working on the BRT project. I'm the project manager for the Southern Corridor, and I'll be happy to give the update that we provided to the route committee for the Southern Corridor locally preferred alternative. Next slide, please. And next slide. So we typically always start our presentations with the overall BRT program and the overview of where the different corridors are. New Bern Avenue is continuing to advance in final design, coming up to about 60% design, currently going through internal reviews with the city as well as NCDOT. The Western Corridor began preliminary design earlier this year and is coming at about 5% design and is currently under internal review as well with City of Raleigh, Town of Cary staff. And then with the Southern Corridor, why we are here today is the route selection, locally preferred alternative. We are looking to go ahead and make that identification so we can start the preliminary design this summer. And the Northern Corridor completed the pre-planning work with the MIS, and we will be starting some work later this year to further refine and redefine that corridor as we move into some design work for that in the near future. So next slide. I do want to highlight that the locally preferred alternative, especially in the case of the Southern Corridor and the Western corridors, is a multi-jurisdictional project. So therefore, the process is a little bit more involved and multi-jurisdictional, where the town of Garner and City of Raleigh both have authority in developing the routing recommendation within their jurisdiction. And this work is based on the prior planning work, public engagement results, and some of the values and goals that have been identified by each municipality through their transportation planning, comprehensive planning efforts, and overall corridor planning efforts. Next slide. So the history for the Southern Corridor locally preferred alternative, in September of last year, we provided an update to the RTA committee as well as the larger board on the corridor and the different alternatives that were under consideration from the major investment study that was completed. There were about 6 alternatives under consideration, and we decided at that time to break the corridor down into 2 different sections, a northern section and a southern section. And I'll get into a little bit more of that detail on the next couple of slides, but in October of 2020, the RTA committee and the route committee, the RTA route committee, and the larger board acted on the northern section and endorsed South Wilmington Street as the preferred alternative. And the City of Raleigh Council followed that endorsement as well in October, identifying South Wilmington Street as the preferred route for that northern section. So at that point, the number of alternatives got eliminated from 6 down to 2. And we had 2 alternatives that were on the southern section that we were working through for the later part of last year and the earlier part of this year. In March, the RTA route committee received an update on the overall Wake BRT program, and that kind of highlighted some of the work that was ongoing with the Southern Corridor that I will get into today. Next slide. So again, the overall kind of timeline for the Southern Corridor, early last year in January 2020, we actually began the process to identify the locally preferred alternative or select a route for the Southern Corridor. In February and March, we had 2 different kickoff meetings before COVID hit, one in town of Garner and one in City of Raleigh. So we had public engagement right before everything kind of got shut down with COVID. And then in the July of last year, we had a presentation to the town of Garner work session at their council on the different alternatives that were being considered and the feedback that we had received from those public engagement events. Again, as I mentioned on the previous slide, in October 2020, City of Raleigh Council took action to endorse South Wilmington Street as the preferred route for that northern section. Since then, we have been working on an additional analysis for the Wilmington Street extension, specifically at Tryon Road, through our coordination with NCDOT, who is a partner on this project from a right-of-way perspective, since they have right-of-way ownership along the corridor. It was identified that we needed to do additional analysis at that intersection before trying to come to a technical recommendation on a preferred route for that southern section. So just this past week on Monday, April 5, 2021, Town of Garner Council took action for endorsing South Wilmington Street extension as the preferred route for the southern section within the town's jurisdiction. And so we are hoping to have a adoption of the full locally preferred alternative sometime later this spring, summer, and then beginning 0 to 30% design. And our action today will kind of help hopefully take that step to move the project forward from an LPA perspective. Next slide. So here's actually the slide that breaks down the southern corridor in the northern section and a southern section. The gray line that you see is the action that was identified in October of 2020, both by the RTA and the City of Raleigh Council, identifying South Wilmington Street over South Saunders as the preferred option on that northern segment. And then, as I mentioned, now we have 2 alternatives remaining on the southern section, which is either the South Wilmington Street extension or the Fayetteville Road option. And the kind of the darker gray shading that you see is the town of Garner's jurisdiction and the action that they made with the selection of the orange alignment, which is the South Wilmington Street extension within their jurisdiction, basically kind of completes a portion of that southern corridor. And that dotted line you see, the dotted orange line or the blue line between the gray line and Tryon Road is the area that's within the City of Raleigh jurisdiction that we're trying to identify today. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we did coordinate with NCDOT on the traffic impact analysis for the Wilmington Street extension at Tryon Road. And the reason for this, again, was to look at different alternatives and identify a feasible alternative that did not require grade separation. Requiring a grade separation was something that we were trying to avoid from a property impact perspective, as well as from a cost feasibility perspective. And so that work basically did identify a feasible alternative that keeps the eastbound and westbound general purpose movements along Tryon Road as they currently exist today. And it only introduces a BRT crossing at the signal, at a signal that would be added there, only allowing north and southbound movement just for the buses, for the BRT lanes. And so additional design and analysis will be conducted at this intersection as part of 30% design work, just to make sure that the traffic signals are coordinated with signals on either side, and to make sure that the level of service continues to be at an acceptable level, both for NCDOT and City of Raleigh and Town of Garner. Next slide. So I do want to highlight that previously, again, in October, when we presented for the northern section, we have shown prior planning efforts and what the recommendations were from those studies. And so the Southern Gateway Corridor study for the City of Raleigh had recommended the Wilmington Street to Wilmington Street extension as the preferred technical recommendation due to lower traffic volumes along the extension and the South Wilmington Street corridor, bicycle and pedestrian safety concerns on South Saunders, as well as Fatewell US 401. There is larger vehicular traffic on those roads as well, so that makes it a little bit more challenging for bicycle and pedestrian environment and accommodations. The public engagement supported during the major investment study, as well as during the Southern Gateway Corridor study, the Wilmington Street extension alternative had the most percentages. And then the right-of-way availability for Wilmington Street was one of the reasons for the northern section. For the Wilmington Street extension, City of Raleigh does own certain parcels along the extension currently, and then the remainder would be needed to complete the extension. Next slide. So again, I mentioned this earlier, but the Town of Garner took action on April 5th to endorse the orange alignment South Wilmington Street as the preferred route for the southern section within their jurisdiction. And we would be looking for that action today with the Raleigh Transit Authority. Next slide. We would be looking for that action today with the Raleigh Transit Authority to also endorse South Wilmington Street extension, the orange alignment, as the preferred route for the southern section within the City of Raleigh's jurisdiction, which would complete the locally preferred alternative for the entire corridor when City of Raleigh Council can take action on it at one of their next meetings. And then I think I have one more slide before I turn it back over to you guys. So the near-term schedule for the project, we just wanted to highlight that we have begun some level of sketch level design work for the corridor. With knowing what the preferred route was on the northern section, we started to investigate some of those options there. We are trying to finalize the traffic impact analysis. There were a few comments from NCDOT and City of Raleigh staff that are being addressed now. The findings do not change, but there were just some technical comments that are being addressed within the final report of that document. And we do have our next public engagement planned for the entire Wake BRT program later this month. And so this will be part of that update for the Southern Corridor that gets included in that public engagement process. And as I've been trying to mention before, we are hoping for that LPA adoption in spring and summer of this year to try to advance into FTA project development and then start the 0 to 30% preliminary design work on the Southern Corridor this summer. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Hi, this is Nathan Spencer again. Before we get into questions from the board, I want to follow up like I did at the committee meeting. We investigated the northern part of the Southern Corridor that last October or before October, before the route committee took a vote. We asked staff to go back and relook at things to decide between South Saunders and South Wilmington. What we found was that the South Wilmington route allowed, because there was right-of-way, for fewer opportunities for business interruptions and less direct displacements. It also costs a significantly less amount of money to be able to do because of the availability of the route and also the lower traffic volume. And there was a lot of opportunity for the city to start stepping up its equitable development around transit, or its basically its transit-oriented development, affordable housing, and look at density and gentle density along that that route so that there's a better chance of not displacing people along that way versus building McMansions along a route. So that was discussed, and that was the reason why South Wilmington ended up being the preferred route by the route committee and then the board, just for those who weren't in the know at the time or on the board. So if there are questions regarding Het's presentation or this southern extension, please have at it.
Hey, it's Michael Stevenson. I have a question. The diagram you showed with the yellow alignment, part of it was dashed. I think that was in Raleigh city limits, and then part of it was solid. I believe that was in Garner city limits. Is that correct? That what the graphic showed?
Yeah, that is correct. So the dashed portion is the Wilmington Street extension that would be requiring construction of a new roadway. The solid part that is within town of Garner's jurisdiction is along Garner Station Boulevard and existing roadways that would lead to Purser Drive and the terminus at Walmart.
My question is, when a municipality approves a longer alignment, I mean, this is kind of circuitous. It is circuitous. Who makes up the delta in cost versus a more direct alignment? Is that included in the Go Triangle budget, or how does that get accounted for?
So from a budgeting perspective, the Wake Transit Plan actually identified ranges for the 4 BRT corridors, and there were assumptions built into it from a corridor perspective, what was assumed, and then I think there was also opportunities as we go through the federal process to, based on how the project does with ratings from ridership and some of the other components, to kind of take a look at if there is an opportunity to request more federal funds versus local funds as matching source. But that was built into the financial assumptions within the Wake BRT program through the Wake Transit Plan work efforts.
So staff's feeling is that alignment would still be within a budget range?
Yes, that is correct.
The second potential concern would be the additional length. I mean, the R in BRT stands for rapid. So I'm always concerned when I see these alignments that seem to be longer than needed. So what about the travel time that would be added? Is there any concern about that?
So there isn't, again, and the graphic makes it look like there is a very significant difference in the length. I think the timing constraints or time savings aren't as bad because the traffic along a Wilmington Street extension would be very low, and compared to a Fayetteville Street Road where there's a 6-lane, pretty much larger corridor with more vehicular traffic where the buses could potentially get stuck more if there are no dedicated lanes provided along that segment. Additionally, the Garner Station Boulevard also is a 2-lane road with very little traffic, providing a more direct connection to the end of the terminus at Walmart and the park and ride that are currently existing along Go Raleigh routes.
Hey, Het, also Garner Station Boulevard is actually a 4-lane divided. It has lots of capacity. It also has very limited signals. And so the other line that you see there, Mr. Stevenson, is US 401, which is an 8-lane facility, actually 10 lanes, I think, in some turn lane sections. And if you can imagine trying to put a dedicated bus lane in a new lane that would require right-of-way within that type of environment that's already there, I would say that the other alignment actually would be probably not talking about the extension itself on the right-of-way, but the little jog that you see at the bottom. That jog is probably a fourth of the cost of the other alternative, as well as because of no signals, I would say is generally comparable. Obviously, we haven't done any timing on that, but I would say that it's probably generally comparable just because it's not in that traffic flow of 401 especially I think even outbound would be even more challenging in that section. Be sure to jump in with that, but I just want to make that clarification there.
Yeah, I appreciate that because it's hard to discern those kind of things from the graphic, but that's very helpful. Thank you.
Are there other questions from the board?
I had another question Michael made me just think of in his asking, which is, and this is my memory at this point of my former attendance of BRT public meetings, but I don't remember there being a jog. Is there a reason why Town of Garner decided not to continue this street straight, like potentially we as Raleigh would commit to be doing? Like, was there a conversation or a decision point there?
Yeah, so there was during the major investment study, you're correct, and some of the preliminary BRT meetings, there probably was a straight line that went directly to Walmart in that extension. Since then, there have been some development plans that have been approved within the Town of Garner that did not incorporate that potential extension. And so the loop on Garner Station Boulevard would allow us to still get to the end of the terminus with the same type of service and not go through any of the current recent development plans that have been approved.
This is Nathan Spencer. Are there any other questions, follow-up questions?
I just want to be clear about what Michael Stevenson. So what you're saying was there was a planned or anticipated street alignment that a certain development did not, in fact, they did not include that alignment. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that was, and again, we would have to connect back with the Town of Garner to get a proper response on that. But from my recollection, the development was not supportive of that extension going through that section. And so at that time, the actual planning efforts for bus rapid transit were also not as far advanced as they are now. So there was a little bit more doubt at that time of what the extension could do or could look like. And so that's the decision that was made.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we're good with questions, I'm going to put on the table a motion to accept staff's recommendation for the South Wilmington extension as LPA. Do I get a second?
Morris Cook, I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. I'll read the members list. All right, Nathan Spencer,
I vote aye.
Michael Stevenson,
I'll abstain.
Michael Stevenson,
I will abstain.
Morris Cook,
Aye.
Joshua Gill,
Aye.
Sarah Prado,
Aye.
Jennifer Truman,
Aye.
and I am abstaining from voting as well. Tallulah Pam Wakaya, the chair.
Does that give us 5 or 4 votes?
That gives 5.
Okay, all right. So the motion does pass. So that was the route committee meeting, and thus concludes my report on the route committee.
All right, thank you for that, Nathan. And we're moving on to the policy and finance with Michael Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee did meet this week, yesterday. We had 2 action items and another information item that we will bring today to the full board. The first one is the contract with the town of Wake Forest for bus service that actually Go Raleigh provides within their city limits. And because of that, we have a 5-year contract with them where they reimburse the city, where they reimburse Go Raleigh for the bus service provided. It's a 5-year contract with a cap of $3.8 million. This is something that it comes up every 5 years, and it's been approved in the past. So the Finance and Policy Committee voted to approve it, and we're bringing it to the board today for the board's approval. And David, Eatman, or Walker, is there any further information that you'd like to provide around that?
This is David Walker. I don't have any additional information. I think you covered it very well. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the contract with the town of Wake Forest?
Michael, this is Nathan Spencer. Just one quick clarifying question. Does the contract provide that all the employment continues to be similar to the employment or equal to the employment of every other Go Raleigh employee along for that route, or for to the extent that we employ the drivers? Are they paid the same? Are they given the same benefits?
I'll defer to David Walker, David Eatman on that.
Yes, the Go Raleigh drivers are all covered under a bargaining unit contract, and they're all paid the same wages, irregardless of what service or what route they're operating.
Okay, I appreciate that. Then I'll make the motion on the
Can I clarify? I know that we had an issue before with some of the ride operators and their issue with some of their routes. Would this fall into that problem of them being dissatisfied with the routes they were given through the system and seniority?
This is David Walker. Go ahead, Mr. Eatman.
So yeah, I was just going to jump in and say this is part of an overall run cut or overall package that drivers pick, types of routes that they want to operate. This has been an existing service within that network, so there's really no change. When we went to a new process for developing what those run picks are, certainly there was some controversy over more weekends off and more types of hours that mimicked a previous schedules, which the drivers liked. But this would not change anything from our current, I would say, process that's been in place now for well over a year, almost 2 years, and would not mimic anything new that caused that discontent during that time period.
Thank you. Just clarifying.
Yeah. Go Raleigh, this is David Walker again. Go Raleigh has been operating this service for, I believe it's a little bit over 10 years total. So this is not anything new. We're just renewing the contract with the town of Wake Forest.
All right. Well, I second the extension of the contract with Wake Forest.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. So I'll go around. Nathan Spencer, Nathan Spencer.
I'm sorry, before we vote, because I think I made a mistake last time. I apologize. It's how many people are supposed to vote? David, you're muted. Five. Who are those 5 people?
So my apologies I was saying wait, I forgot to hit unmute. My apologies. So we do have 7 voting members today. Mr. Nathan Spencer. Okay. And
no, I get that. I get the 7 of us because 7 of us voted last time, but you made a comment about the original 5. And I just want to make sure that we did what we were supposed to do as we go forward voting.
I miscounted originally.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Nathan Spencer,
I vote aye.
Tulupe Omakai,
Aye.
Joshua Gill,
Aye.
Sarah Prado,
Aye.
Morris Cook,
Aye.
and LaPonda. I don't know your last name. I'm sorry. Apologize.
I do not believe I'm voting. I'm an alternative right now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Jen Truman,
Aye.
Michael Stevenson, aye. And so motion passes. The second action item was the fiscal year 22 budget approval, which had been previously presented to the committee and to the board by Siobhan Tucker. And the committee voted to approve it, to forward it to City Council. Is there, David, is Siobhan Tucker planning to present that?
Hi, this is Siobhan Tucker, Senior Fiscal Analyst with the Transit Division. No, we don't really have another presentation.
Okay.
Last month it was presented as an information item, both the presentation and the backup memo. The only change that I mentioned in committee does relate to the fare box revenue. City Council has confirmed their interest to suspend fares for the entirety of FY22, and that would run from July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2022. We are working with the budget office to make those changes to our submitted numbers, and that change would be to zero out the fare box revenue for fixed route and paratransit, and that change would result in additional CARES Act funding. So that's the only proposed change to the information that was presented.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions or discussion about the budget?
This is Nathan Spencer. The only thing I'd say is that I'll support it, knowing that we'll continue to budget for no fares through FY22, because that was the voice that I had concerned.
Thank you. And any other questions or comments?
Tulupe, I don't have a comment as far as anything presented, but I do know at our last meeting, Dwight Spencer came and presented a report. I know when I asked about it.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but we need to wrap up on the budget vote. And then, I do have that as an information item, yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. No, so are there any further questions or comments about the budget? Okay, is there a motion to approve the budget?
Morris Cook,
I make a motion to approve the budget.
Thank you. Morris, did you second?
I'll second it. Morris Cook, I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Nathan Spencer?
I vote aye.
Tulupe Omakai?
Aye.
Jen Truman?
I'm going to abstain just for not having enough background knowledge to vote in support, and also because I think we should consider the no fares throughout the entire fiscal year.
That is what's on the table.
That the no fares would be continued until 22,
Yes.
covered by the FARES Act resources that we have.
Yeah. But if you wish to abstain, that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's just being so new and it being such a dense document. I think I'll abstain and appreciate you all putting up with that for me.
That's fine. Joshua Gill,
I vote aye.
Sarah Prado,
Aye.
and Michael Stevenson votes aye. So the motion passes. And finally, as the chair Ted was asking about, at our last meeting, Mr. Dwight Spencer, representing a bus operators organization, I forget the exact name, but he brought a list of concerns from some of the bus operators having to do with safety and protection from COVID and so forth. This was referred to our committee, but the document had to be reviewed by staff and by the city attorney because it contained information about personnel that should not be in the public discourse. And so we have not received that document yet. It hasn't gone through the full review. So we haven't been able to review it or take any action since the last meeting.
Mr. Stevenson, if I could provide a little bit of additional comment.
Sure, please.
We really did do our best to try to have that ready for today. So my apologies there. What we'll do is we'll get that out just as quickly as we can. Again, whenever there is what I call human resource related information within a document, we're very careful, and certainly obviously us being a public body, even though it's a contractor and not our direct employees, we still take, that privacy very seriously. So we just want to make sure that all of that is clean, so that whatever we distribute is it won't be missing anything. We just want to make sure that there's anything that specifically calls out a person's name and things of that nature are redacted in a way that we can distribute that safely and feel like that we're not violating anything in that regard. Again, I really wanted to make sure we got that out before the meeting today, but we weren't able to do that. So my apologies on that. But we will not wait before the next committee meeting or for the next transit authority meeting. If we have that information ready to go out, we'll get that out at any point that's ready to go. So I just wanted to make that clarification for the board there. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Was there another comment?
Oh, I do have a comment. So you're saying that we will get it before the next committee meetings?
I would think so, most definitely. Again, I was really hoping that I was going to get it out before today. But obviously we didn't make that goal. But we will not wait for the committee meetings to distribute that. If I get it tomorrow, then we'll distribute it tomorrow. If we get it, Monday or Tuesday of next week, we'll distribute it Monday or Tuesday of next week. So I just wanted to make sure that was relayed. We won't wait for the next round in May. If that is available, we'll go ahead and get that out just as soon as we can.
Thank you.
If there are no more comments, that concludes our committee report.
Thank you, Michael. All right, the next committee is the marketing committee, but Karen is not here. Is there somebody who can go over the committee information for her? We talked about the BRT public engagement update.
I think Andrea is prepared. Tell me if I'm wrong, Andrea.
That is correct, unless you want to report out to LulaPay. So
no, I'll let you.
Okay, thank you. Andrea Epstein with Transit. The first discussion item was regarding public engagement for all 3 corridors for BRT. So on each corridor, our consulting team has reached out to all the religious institutions, local organizations, apartments, HOAs, schools, local businesses. So each corridor has had over 200 contacts with all of those different folks included. And then the other main thing we talked about is the upcoming BRT virtual open house that will begin on April 26th and run through May 21st. And it will focus on information on all corridors. And this one will include 3 live Q&As versus 1. So there will be a specific live Q&A for New Bern, Western, and Southern. So those were the main things they came to give the marketing group an update on. We also got to hear from the Go Triangle team, which was great because we worked closely with them. So we basically went over, they've got a lot of new staff members over there and a big team as well. So we met with their chief communications officer and his entire team, which includes marketing, public engagement, public relations, and the TDM program. So that was nice. And they reported out all the public engagement they're working on, what they're participating with the Wake Transit Plan, and then gave a brief marketing and communications update on, again, the items they're working on. So it was a nice, informative meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. All right, and it looks like that does wrap up our committee meetings. We have performance reports, but those are in the attachments for us to review. Are there any concluding remarks from any of the authority members or staff or anybody in attendance today? All right, well, I want to thank everybody for this. Looks like it was a record RTA meeting, just like the the policy and finance committee meeting was, but thank everyone. I will not keep you longer for attending and joining us in your engagement in this RTA meeting for April 8th. We'll call this meeting to close at 4:39 p.m. And I wish you all have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.